Hello everyone, welcome back. This video lecture is about vestibular apparatus and we will see the physiological anatomy and functions of vestibular apparatus. This topic will be covered under the following headings. That is, first of all, we will look at the vestibular apparatus and its physiological anatomy. Then there are various functional units of vestibular apparatus, that is the utricle and saccule and the semicircular canals. So afterwards we will look at the functions of each of them, that is the function of utricle and saccule and the function of semicircular canal. In my view, if I say that what is vestibular apparatus, it is just like the muscle spindle. As the muscle spindle is the sensory unit present inside the muscle, which gives us the sensation of what is happening in the muscle and is involved in various reflex and voluntary motor control. Similarly, vestibular apparatus is also a sensory unit. It is a sensory unit for equilibrium. Equilibrium means the posture of the body. The state of the body, the posture of the body, with respect to the surface of the earth or the gravitational pull. So in that way, vestibular apparatus is a sensory organ or sensory receptor for the equilibrium. And how it is similar to muscle spindle is, it is also involved in reflex control of various motor reflexes, so to say, to maintain the equilibrium, and also for the voluntary control of various motor functions. So that is how vestibular apparatus is a sensory organ similar to the muscle spindle. So let us start and understand what is this vestibular apparatus. As you can see, it is the anatomy of the ear and especially the sensory part or the sensory organ of the ear. The whole anatomy of the ear, when we study about the external auditory canal, tympanic membrane, and the three bones which connect the external canal to the inner sensory part, that is the malleus, incus and stapes. And then this is the special sensory organ which is located inside both the ears. So the external ear, the middle ear and the inner part of the ear. So this is the special sensory organ, out of which the cochlea here, as you can see, the cochlea is involved in the sensation of hearing, whereas the other part, which is the semicircular canals and utricle and saccule, are involved in the sensation of equilibrium. Cochlea plays a very minimal role or no role at all in the sensation of equilibrium, and it is distinctively or it is exclusively a function of semicircular canal, utricles and saccule. So let us see what we are talking now. What are those semicircular canals, utricles and saccules we are talking about? So our inner ear is made up of cochlea, three semicircular canals, utricle and saccule. Out of this, the three semicircular canal and utricles and saccule are the major or the important aspect of equilibrium, and this cochlea is the important sensory organ of hearing. Okay, so when we look at the inner ear, this aspect is located inside the petrous part of the temporal bone, and this, what you can see in the blue color structure, is the membranous part of it, the membranous labyrinth. It is situated inside a bony tube which is present inside the petrous part of the temporal bone. There occurs a bony tube that is called the bony labyrinth, and inside that bony labyrinth lines these membranes, and thus it is called as the membranous labyrinth. And this membranous labyrinth is of this following structure. This part of the membranous labyrinth is called cochlea, which is involved in hearing, as we have already mentioned, and the other part here is the equilibrium aspect of the inner ear, which is made up of two important subdivisions, that is the semicircular canal 1 and the utricle and saccule. So there are three semicircular canals, that is the anterior semicircular canal, the posterior semicircular canal and the lateral or horizontal semicircular canal. And then there are two large chambers inside the membranous labyrinth. The first large chamber is called utricle and the second large chamber is called saccule. As you can see, there are certain sensory receptors which are present inside these chambers. When we will see later in detail, we will see that each semicircular canal has a dilation at one end of it, and it is called as ampulla. And inside this ampulla is each one is having a sensory organ or the sensory receptor which is called as crista ampullaris. So this is the sensory receptor in case of semicircular canal. When we see the large chambers in the membranous labyrinth, the first is utricle and the second is saccule, and these also have the sensory receptor that is called as macula. So the macula is the sensory receptor of utricle and saccule, and the crista ampullaris, which is present in the ampulla of the semicircular canal, is the sensory receptor for the semicircular canals. So there are two major divisions, as we already mentioned, that is the semicircular canal and the two larger chambers, utricle and saccule. So let us see in details what are these subdivisions, what functions they perform. So when we say about the macula, as we have discussed, it is a sensory organ which is present inside the utricle and saccule. Okay, so the macula here, this is the picture showing the macula which is present inside the utricle and saccule. Each one has one macula. Okay, so in that macula, let us see what is the structure of that macula. The macula has a gelatinous layer. Above that gelatinous layer, there occurs a calcium carbonate crystal called as statoconia, okay, or otolith. It is also called as otolith, or it is also known as statoconia. So these are the calcium carbonate crystals which are lying above the gelatinous layer. And the main sensory organ or the sensory receptor which is present inside the inner ear is hair cell. Let it be inside the macula, let it be inside the crista ampullaris, or let it be inside the cochlea. Each of them has the important functional receptor inside it, that is called the hair cell. And this hair cell, as you can see, is giving out hair tufts or the cilia, as to say, in the gelatinous layer. So this is the basic structure, and these hair cells are then supplied by the nerves. So any receptor potential which is generated in these hair cells will then form the action potential and will be carried away to the brain with the help of these neurons. So this is the basic structure of the macula. What are its component? Gelatinous layer. On that gelatinous layer lies the calcium carbonate crystals which is called as statoconia or otolith, and then the second part is the hair cells which has the body and its cilia which is projected into the gelatinous layer. And these hair cells are supplied by the nerve fibers, because when they produce receptor potential, it will get converted into action potential and will be carried through this nerve fibers to the brain. So this is the basic structure of macula, which is the sensory organ of utricle and saccule. Now this macula, this is a little bit hazy diagram, but still this part of the diagram, what you have to see is the macula in the utricle is lying horizontally. As you can see here, it is horizontally, that means it is parallel to the surface of the earth. It is lying horizontally and it is parallel to the surface of the earth. Whereas the macula of the saccule is lying vertically, that is, it is perpendicular to the surface of the earth. So this is the difference between the macula of utricle and macula of saccule. That is, the macula of utricle it is horizontal to the surface of the earth, and the macula of saccule is perpendicular to the surface of the earth. This is important because the utricle is important. It sends the information about the orientation of the head with respect to the gravity, with respect to the surface of the earth when a person is standing, whereas when a person is lying down, the saccule tells the information, gives the information of the posture or the orientation of the head with respect to the gravity. So this is important. And another important aspect to understand is, as you can see, there are various orientation of the hair cells. So the various orientation of the hair cells in that horizontal aspect is important to give us information of various degrees of tilt, so that the different orientation of the hair cells, when these are excited or stimulated because of the stimulus, they discharge in a distinct pattern, and that pattern is assessed by our brain and gives us the information about the head orientation in various degrees, various direction in the horizontal plane or in the vertical plane. So the assessment of overall stimulus from these utricle and saccule will give the brain an idea about the orientation of the head, either in the standing or in the lying posture. Now, as you can see, what happens in the macula of utricle. As you can see, when the person is in the standing posture, it is horizontal and the hair cells are embedded, and otolith is present, or the calcium carbonate crystals which we discussed is present on the top of gelatinous layer, which is also called as the otolith membrane, and the hair cells are projecting here. Now the important aspect of otolith is its specific gravity is greater than, like 3 times greater than the specific gravity of the surrounding membrane, otolith membrane. So when the person bends down, as you can see here, when the person bends down, this otolith then moves towards the gravitational force, thus causing the gelatinous membrane to flow or to change its configuration, and thus changing the, or thus tilting or shifting the cilia which are projecting into the gelatinous membrane. As you can see, when the person bends, what is happening is, because of the more specific gravity of otolith or statoconia, what is happening is it is going down because of the gravitational force, taking the otolith membrane or gelatinous layer also with it, and thus bending the cilia which is projecting in the, thus bending the cilia which is projecting in the gelatinous membrane. So why this bending of cilia is important for the initiation of receptor potential, we have to understand. For that, let us understand what is the cilia, what is this hair cell. So when we see, there are individual hair cells here, as you can see, which are projecting into the gelatinous membrane. So let us take one individual hair cell, this individual hair cell which is projecting in the gelatinous membrane, and these are the otolith, and this is otolith membrane and the hair cells which are projecting. When you see the structure of the hair cell, what you can see here is there is a single kinocilium which is the largest cilia at the one end of the hair cell, whereas there are 50 to 70 stereocilia which are from increasing to decreasing height. The height is increasing from one end till it reaches to the kinocilium. So it is arranged in this way, and this tip of each of the stereocilia is connected with the help of a filamentous attachment. And here, as you can see, this hair cell is having the innervation of a nerve fiber, and if any receptor potential is generated here and get converted into the action potential, it will be carried away by the nerve fiber. So this is the individual hair cell, what you can see, which is embedded. What is the importance of this cilia? Let us say that these are the stereocilia, okay, the adjacent stereocilia, the one is the smaller and one which is toward the kinocilium is the larger. So what happens as the person bends, downwards to pick up his hat, what is going to happen is because of the higher specific gravity of the otolith, it will drag the gelatinous membrane or the otolith membrane gelatinous material towards the specific gravity, which will tilt the hair cell which is projected in the gelatinous membrane. Okay, so if the hair cell is tilted towards the direction of kinocilium or towards the direction of, as you can see, if the hair cell is tilted towards the direction of kinocilium, each of them will be bending towards the subsequent higher or the subsequent larger stereocilia. So this is what is the case. So each of them are bending toward the kinocilium, and as you can see, the filamentous material what we were discussing, the tip link protein, it is called as the tip link protein, it gets stretched, and when it gets stretched, it opens up the ion channel. Usually the ion which passes inside to cause depolarization in these hair cell is the potassium ion. Why the potassium is important, not the sodium? Because in the environment which is surrounding the hair cell, in this case endolymph, which is surrounding the hair cell, in that endolymph, as you can see here, the potassium ions concentration is more and sodium ions concentration is very less. So the positive ion which has to go inside when the channel opens is the potassium ion, and when it goes inside, it creates depolarization, and that is how that depolarization, when summed up, or the depolarization of the receptor potential when summed up, will cause action potential to occur. And then what is going to happen is, once the ion goes inside, subsequently the hair cell itself, the stereocilium itself, has a motor molecule, that is the myosin molecule attached to it. Once it gets open, after few seconds it gets closed by the motor molecule shifting the hair cell down, shifting the ion channel down, and thus reducing the stretch in the tip link protein, which then closes the ion channel. So what happens here is, when the person bends, what is going to happen? The hair cell, the otolith which is having the higher specific gravity, will have the gravitational pull that will take the gelatinous membrane also with it, and thus the hair cell which is embedded in the gelatinous membrane will also be displaced. If the displacement is towards the side of kinocilium, what is going to happen? More and more positive ions are going to come inside. Once the ion channels are open, after few seconds, what happens? After few milliseconds, what is going to happen? The myosin is going to close the channel by carrying the channel downwards, which relieves this tip link protein from the tension of movement of the, which was created by the movement of stereocilia toward the kinocilium. This is happening, this is causing the depolarization. Whereas if the movement is in the opposite direction, there will be no opening of the ion channel, and the depolarization will not be produced. So this is one way to understand it. One last aspect to understand about this macula, the depolarization present in macula, is that they has a tonic discharge around the frequency of 100. So when we were discussing that if the stereocilia bends towards kinocilium, the frequency of that discharge increases, and thus signaling the change in equilibrium. Whereas if the bend occurs in the opposite direction, if the bend occurs from the kinocilia to the smallest stereocilia direction, what is going to happen? If the bend is occurring in this direction, it is going to get depolarized, and the frequency of tonic discharge increases. Whereas if the bend occurs in the opposite direction, if the person bends in the opposite direction, what is going to happen? The frequency of the discharge is going to decrease. So this is the important aspect of the frequency of discharge, the tonic discharge and its frequency to give signal to the brain. Now coming to the second aspect, that is the semicircular canals or the semicircular ducts. So as we discussed that there were three semicircular canals, that is the anterior semicircular canal, posterior and the lateral. Lateral is also called as horizontal, and that is because of their arrangement, the name is given to them. So let us look at the arrangement of those semicircular canals. First of all, consider the horizontal. This one, as you can see here, is the horizontal semicircular canals. In this picture it is projecting out towards us. Okay, so this horizontal semicircular canal, when the head is straight, it is at the 30 degrees with the surface of the earth. Whereas if our head is bent to the 30 degrees, then this horizontal canal comes parallel to the surface of the earth. So this is the orientation of the horizontal canal. As you can see here, when our head is bent 30 degrees downwards, then it comes parallel to the surface of the earth. So this is the horizontal semicircular canal. As you can see here, when the head is straight, it is 30 degrees upward. If the head is bent, then it comes parallel to the surface of the earth. When we see the other anterior and posterior semicircular canals, so this anterior semicircular canal is present here. The orientation of the anterior semicircular canal is this way, and posterior semicircular canal is this way. This is the left anterior and this is the left posterior. As you can see here, this is the right posterior and this is the right anterior semicircular canal. So this is the orientation of this semicircular canals. One thing to notice is it is projecting 45 degrees. It is all of them are at 90 degrees to each other. That is, the angle between anterior and posterior is 90 degree, the angle between anterior and horizontal is 90 degrees, and the angle between posterior and horizontal is also 90 degrees. But as we can see here, there is 45 degrees outward projection of the anterior and 45 degrees outward projection of the posterior semicircular canal with respect to the center midline. Okay, so that is how it is mentioned in the book: 45 degrees outwards and anteriorly, 45 degrees back outwards and posteriorly. So posterior and anterior semicircular canals. So this is about the orientation of the semicircular canals, how they are oriented in all three dimension plane of the surface or of the environment. One of the important aspect to understand in the semicircular canal and why there are three different orientation of three different semicircular canal is that the semicircular canal is working as a sensation or the sensory organ for angular rotation or the rotational movements or the angular movements, and thus the presence of these semicircular canals in three dimensions to understand, to sense the angular movement in all three dimensions of the space. So because this anterior is in this direction, anterior semicircular canal is present in this direction, it will be the most sensitive one to sense the angular movement which is occurring in that dimension. So that is why any angular movement in any dimension can be sensed by the particular semicircular canal, and that is why it has a three-dimension orientation of all the semicircular canals, so that the precise angular movement can be sensed. Now coming to its important part is, every semicircular canal has its own dilated part which is called as ampulla, and as we have studied that inside the ampulla is the sensory organ which is called as the crista ampullaris. So let us first see the structure of this crista ampullaris. This again is having the gelatinous mass, okay. On top of it is the gelatinous mass, and the hair cells are projecting, the cilia or the hair tufts are projecting from the hair cells inside the gelatinous mass, and this gelatinous mass is supplied by the the hair cells are supplied by the nerve fibers, similar to what we have seen in case of macula. And this is another simplified structure completely inside the semicircular canal and the ampulla. So this is the gelatinous mass is called as a cupula, okay, and this whole structure is called crista ampullaris, hair cells, and there is projection of cilia, the stereocilium and the kinocilium what we have seen before in the gelatinous mass, okay. And this semicircular canal is filled with endolymph, a fluid called endolymph, okay. So what is going to happen when the person is stationary? What is that? The cupula is at the vertical position and hair cells are at the vertical position, whereas when the person starts to rotate, let us understand there are two conditions what can happen. That is when they start to rotate, when they are rotating continuously, and when they stop to rotate, okay. We have to analyze in all those conditions what will be the action. So when they start to rotate, what is going to happen is the bony structure will start moving, okay. The bony structure, the membranous labyrinth will start moving, whereas the fluid inside this membranous labyrinth will have an inertia. So because of the inertia, if the person starts rotating in this direction, because of the bony membrane is also rotating in this direction, the membranous labyrinth is rotating in this direction, because of the inertia the fluid will flow in the opposite direction, and thus displacing the hair cells, thus displacing first the cupula and the hair cells, the cilia which are projecting in the cupula, and the mechanism of generation of receptor potential and action potential will be the same. That is, when the kinocilia and stereocilia, as we discussed before, kinocilia and stereocilia, when the movement of stereocilia is toward the kinocilium, there will be depolarization, whereas when the movement is opposite from the kinocilium, there will be hyperpolarization, and thus because of these movement, the receptor potential and the pattern of impulse will be then carried by the vestibular nerve to the brain, and thus they will sense which type of movement. So when we see about the macula, it is telling us about the orientation of head with respect to gravity, whereas when we see about the semicircular canals and the crista ampullaris which are present in the semicircular canals, they are telling about the angular movement. So angular rotation, they are giving the information of the angular rotation. So that is all about the anatomy and how these macula and crista ampullaris are stimulated. In the next class, what we are going to do is how these acts combinedly to maintain the equilibrium will be dealt in the next class. Thank you so much.